Hi, this is episode 6 of Making a Simple Game with HTML5, Canvas and JavaScript. Each episode builds on the previous episodes. In this episode we will use the script from episode 5 as a starting point. If you have not seen the previous episodes yet, you might want to start with them. There are links in the description below. There will also be a link to the script after the changes we do today. Today we will add sound to the game. We will add a background music track that is looping and 3 sound effects. One for the sound of the ball hitting the paddles or the top or bottom wall, one sound for the ball hitting the opponent's wall, which would be a point for the player, and one for the ball hitting the player's wall, a lost point. Adding sound can be fairly simple. We add a variable we call myMusic, use the constructor newAudio, and give the address to the source file. We will use OGG files in this episode. You can use a couple of different formats for the sound files. The major limitation is which files different browsers accept. I believe OGGs generally is an accepted format. MP3s could be a different possibility. We can set up our background music to play right before going to the main function for the first time. We then also set it to keep looping. We set up the sound effects the same way. And set them to play as a part of the collision detecting that we made in an earlier episode. We try it out and everything works as we intended. And we could be done here. However, there can be problems if the program tries to play the sound before it is fully loaded, similar to using graphic files to add graphics, which we dealt with in episode 5. We can do something similar here. We can use an event listener to check for when the sound file has been loaded. With the background file, it is simplest to start playing the sound in the function in the event listener, and also set the looping there. This way, the file cannot be played before it is loaded. We now need to remove the code we earlier made for playing the background music. In episode 5, we used a variable called loadNumb to keep count of the number of graphic files that had been loaded. When a graphic file had been loaded, we added 1 to the variable, and we would not start the proper game before all files were loaded. Until all files are loaded, a load screen is shown. We accomplished this with a different variable we called scene, and we set that to 0 as a starting value and to 1 when we are ready to play the game properly. We can add the loading of sound files to this system. So we will add 1 to loadNumb when the background music file is loaded. We then add event listeners for the sound effects as well, and use them to add one to the load num variable for each of the sound effects. The number of files to be loaded before the game goes from load screen to the actual game is now 8, so we set the number for setting scene to 1 to load num equals 8. Finally, we set all the changes of the ball and the paddles to operate only if scene equals 1. That will include all situations where any sound effects are played. This way, none of the sound effects will be called to play until after they have been loaded. So now we can add sound to the game. I have now touched on all the different parts of making a simple game using HTML5 and JavaScript that I had intended to include in this series. This is, of course, just scratching the surface of the subject, but I hope this has been useful to some of you and possibly made you interested in looking further into this kind of game making. This will be all on this subject, at least for now. Hope to see you later, possibly on some completely different subject. Bye!